afternoon. My name is Willma Fields. I'm a 2015-2016 MAT candidate. My presentation today is regarding my community internship at Venetucci Farm, entitled Finding My Feet in the Soil. Venetucci Farm is a 200-acre, 100% chemical-free farm in southern Colorado Springs that provides fruits, vegetables, and meat products to the Pikes Peak region. The farm was originally founded by the Venetucci family in 1936, and it stayed in the family until 2006 when it was donated to the Pikes Peak Community Foundation, which you had heard Nick reference in regards to Aspen Valley. So this is the same foundation that runs Venetucci Farm. When the property was gifted to the foundation, it was put into a conservation easement so that the land will remain agricultural in perpetuity. The mission statement of the farm is threefold. The first mission is to grow and distribute healthy food to people living in the Pikes Peak region. This is Susan Gordon. She's the farm manager, and she's been the farm manager for 10 years. She and I work closely in my internship at the farm. And Susan is an amazing soul to experience. She is so passionate about the role that food plays in social justice issues. She's passionate about conserving our soil, about protecting our environment, and she was a wonderful mentor to have during this internship. The second mission of the farm is to provide meaningful education and volunteer opportunities to people living in the Pikes Peak region. And the man you see behind the spotting scopes there, that's David Rudin, who is the education coordinator for the farm. And David's been there for 8 years, and he and I also work closely together during my internship. David is adamant about giving the opportunity to school-age children to experience the natural world, and he and I had several conversations that went back and forth about, did we want to bring in standards-based curriculum and interweave it with the curriculum that we were going to implement during my internship? And we came to the conclusion that we really wanted this to be an organic experience for the students, that really, if their classroom teachers chose to connect it to standards-based curriculum, they could do so. He really just wanted kids to come to the farm and get their hands dirty. And the third mission of the farm is to continue the legacy of Nick and Bambi Venetucci. The farm is most well known for its annual pumpkin giveaway. Has anybody here ever gotten a pumpkin from Venetucci Farms? Oh, there's a couple. Every group we had come to the farm, that would be the first question that we asked them, was how many of them had gotten a pumpkin from the farm. Nick and Bambi Venetucci did not have any children of their own, and they instituted a tradition where every year they would have pumpkins for kids, and busloads of school-age children would come out to the farm and be able to pick their own pumpkin. And Nick, from what I hear, the stories that I've read, was very kind of like grouchy old farmer, and he wore a hat and he spoke gruffly. And he said, "You, as long as you can carry the pumpkin out of here, it's yours." So even to this day, the farm continues Nick's legacy, and kids still have to carry their own pumpkin out of the farm. So my role, I was the first CCMAT intern that the farm has hosted. And one project that Susan was really passionate about was developing activities that would expose farm visitors to the importance of healthy soil. And so Susan and I started working on these activities in late March. And during one of our first meetings that Susan and I had, I pitched what I thought were really exciting, entertaining activities that would reach a whole variety of age groups. In fact, I think I even used the term carnival game for an idea that I had to reach students. Another idea that I had was that we could dress up like soil superheroes, which this is really playing to my kindergarten placement. And later that day, I sent her a text that says, "Hi Susan, this is Wilma Fields. Thanks for meeting. I'll email tomorrow with more ideas." I still think one of us should dress up as Super Soil Woman, and the other should be her nemesis, Erosion. Have a great day. So if you'll notice, there's no text response. Now, I later learned that that's because Susan doesn't text. It's not her preferred method of communication. But this is an accurate representation of how my initial ideas were received by both Susan and David. At this point in my internship, I had yet to internalize their preferred methods for interacting with students. And this is actually where I learned the most and grew the most in my internship. I am most comfortable as teacher as entertainer. I teach the best when I'm entertaining my students, and I act goofy and I use funny voices and we play funny games. This is my preferred method for interacting with my students. But however, David and Susan asked me to dig deeper. They wanted me to move from teacher as entertainer to teacher as engager. It really asked me to step out of my comfort zone. And they were asking me to ask students to engage with soil, which proved another issue for me because this is an unfamiliar field for me. I have a religion bachelor's degree. I have no background in science. When I went into the internship, I thought it would be about getting kids excited about growing vegetables, and Susan and David were asking me to talk deeper issues. And so I spent hours and hours researching soil conservation curriculum, soil curriculum in general, and also doing test runs on soil experiments that I could do with students when they came out to the farm. And I'm really grateful to Lee for helping me with this. He definitely coached me through a lot of this. I also grew in my ability to work independently. In my co-teaching experience, I had worked with a really strong team of experienced teachers to write lesson plans that were based on standards-based curriculum, and I found myself in my internship without those boundaries. And I worked independently very often, and so I also learned to ask for feedback and learned how to receive feedback better than I had before. I also learned to work with a lot of different age groups. I worked with preschool students, even younger, sometimes toddlers who were pre-vocal. And each of these different age groups forced me to look at the curriculum and what I was trying to achieve in a different way. What was the main point that I needed to get across to this age group? I work with middle schoolers and college students. Actually, this college class was a CC class that talked about human impact on biodiversity. This was a really great experience for me because going into it, Susan was like, so what are you going to talk about? What are you going to offer these college students? I teach kindergartners. I can't offer college students anything. But again, it forced me out of my comfort zone. It asked me to look at the curriculum and see what can I offer. And I actually was able to offer something to these students. It was a talking point having to deal with genetically modified corn, and the professor was like, we're going to take this back and we're going to unpack this. This is great. And I also worked with retired community members. This community member in specific was one that pushed me to be able to define why I want to teach. When David had introduced me to their group, he said, and this is Willma Field, she's a graduate student at Colorado College. And he left it at that. This woman found me later that morning and she said, so are you studying biology? And I said, no. What are you studying? I'm studying to be a teacher. And she kind of cocked her head and said, why is a teacher interning at a farm? And so I thought about it, and I told her, I want to be a teacher because our world needs more critical thinkers. I want to teach students to ask questions and find answers. Like, where does your food come from? Who grew it? And how did it get here? And is it healthy? What does organic even mean? And when they ask those questions and find those answers, I want to be able to push them further to examine the answers. Are there injustices that you find in those answers? And how do you address those injustices? I want to teach students to enact social change. So what was the answer I gave her for why a teacher was on a farm? And all of this disequilibrium that I experienced at the beginning of the internship and the hours of soil curriculum research and test runs allowed me to really get my feet under me, or like I said, like find my feet in the soil. I created several new lesson plans that can be used with a variety of different age groups that I left with the community partner. I edited scripts. David, as the education coordinator, uses community volunteers to come to the farm, especially during the Pumpkins for Kids in the fall. And the scripts allow him to let the community volunteers who might not have a background in farming or anything agricultural come. They use the script to interact with the students. I was able to introduce farm staff to some new technologies, including a ProScope, which is a handheld microscope that you can sync to an iPad and an iPhone. And that was a really exciting day. It was a group of students from the Colorado Springs School came, and we got earthworms and centipedes and used the ProScope with them. That was really fun. And I created several worksheets and handouts regarding soil and soil conservation. I also created a recommended reading list for primary grades regarding soil and soil science. And I also created a teacher survey that we gave out to all the teachers that came to the farm, asking them for feedback on the program. And I provided hours and hours of manual labor and good conversation. My fondest memory of the internship was planting broccoli next to Susan, and she and I don't know if you've ever planted broccoli, but it looks similar to using the restroom in the woods. You're squatted down, using a pick, and moving the soil away. And she and I were in this very awkward position, and we were just having the most natural conversation about what further collaborations MAT students can have with Venetucci Farm. And I would encourage any of you that are interested in it, if you want to talk more with me about it, I would love to talk with you. I'm really grateful to Susan and David for pushing me out of my comfort zone as a teacher and making me try new things. And that's all I have for now. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Chris.
You talked about the difference between your vision of yourself as an entertainer versus an engager. How do you think you'll take some of that shift in your thinking back to a kindergarten classroom?
When they asked me to engage the students, what they were asking me to do was to let the subject matter speak for itself, without bells and whistles and without pretty colors and funny voices. And that was hard for me because, if anything, teacher as entertainer is my crutch. If I don't understand something or I feel like I'm not reaching, I jump into jazzy mode. And what it forced me to do is to know my subject matter better, to look at it closer and make sure that I really had my ducks in a row before I ventured out to teach. Yes, ma'am.
In your classroom next year, what elements of Venetucci will you bring to the classroom?
Oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. I was allowed so much freedom in my internship, and I actually just decided to bite the bullet, and I went out and I bought all the supplies that I need. Part of what I did for the farm was getting a supply list and finding out pricing for different supplies that they would need to do these different experiments. So I have actually boxes of supplies already for 30 students for all of these activities, 6 different activities altogether that I came up with. And I feel like no matter, I did one of the same soil aggregate experiments with a group of first graders, the middle school students that came, and I also did the same experiment with the Colorado College class that came. So I feel like no matter what grade level I'll be teaching next year, I'll be able to implement the lesson plans that I came up with. Yes, Sheldon.
I hope I say this question right. How did the curriculum you developed for Venetucci, how did that tie into state standards?
Absolutely not.
Technology?
No, and that was part of the back and forth.
You did mention that, but I figured there could be an application somewhere.
And there definitely was, but what I was encouraged to do from the farm staff was to not spend my time on it, which was very difficult coming from this program and coming from my student teaching placement, where that's always what we came back to, circled around. Each of the experiments that I had would easily align with different state standards. And when I talk about how I could do the experiments that I did with kindergartners, first graders, or college students, it would just be a matter of how you implemented the exercises as to what standards that they would apply to.
Thank you.
Of course. Anybody else? Yes, Erica.
So I've had the honor of working with Susan before, and she has a very interesting way of communicating. So I was wondering if you learned a little bit about how to communicate and I guess speak with people who you have to collaborate, or administrators that have different opinions than you do.
Yeah, for sure. Like I indicated by the text message, there were no holes barred when it came to Susan letting you know whether your idea was a good one or not, or whether she appreciated your idea. But I felt like that was part of what I took away. At first, I was very taken aback by her approach to communication. But what I learned is that, A, take responsibility for your mistakes. My most memorable non-positive interaction with Susan might have been, she had asked me to take a group of middle school students to do something with several compost piles. And what I thought I heard was very different than what she thought she had told me. And I ended up messing up some months of work in a compost pile. To which I replied, I am sorry, I misunderstood. What can I do to fix it? And that was just, she just kind of looked at me like maybe that was the first time she'd ever heard those words. But and then she said, you know what, it's okay. It's okay. We'll fix it. It'll be fine. Where I feel like if I had taken a more defensive standpoint and said, well, you told me to do it that way, I probably would have gotten the wrath. So, any more questions? Oh, great. Thank you guys very much.